They already call you the villain. Before you speak, before you explain, before you defend yourself. The label was chosen for you in rooms you were never meant to enter, in conversations layered with caution, in glances that linger a second too long. They sense something in you that does not bend easily, something composed, something restrained, and instead of understanding it, they define it. They question your quiet. They mistrust your distance. They interpret your self-control as calculation. So let me ask you something slowly. What happens when you stop correcting them? This message is not for everyone. It is for the one who has been observed more than embraced, analyzed more than accepted. If they insist on casting you as the villain, then give them a story worth fearing. You have noticed the shift, the subtle tightening of posture when you enter a space, the way admiration turns into comparison, the way comparison turns into silent rivalry. They measure you without admitting it. They look for cracks in your armor, hoping to prove you are fragile. But what unsettles them is your restraint. You do not react on impulse. You do not reveal everything you think. You do not chase validation. And that composure creates tension. Because when someone cannot predict you, they cannot control you. So they assign meaning to your discipline. They call it cold. They call it distant. They call it dangerous. It comforts them to believe you lack warmth rather than admit you possess depth. Every attempt to define you exposes their discomfort. They feel your focus. They sense your patience. They recognize that you move with intention. And intention, when steady, feels threatening to those who drift without direction. So now you understand the shift within yourself. You no longer rush to clarify your character. You no longer waste energy defending your nature. People see through their own filters, not through your truth. And that realization frees you. You refine your focus. You build without noise. While they speculate, you strengthen. While they whisper, you elevate. The identity they tried to use against you becomes protection, not cruelty, not chaos. Control. You realize something they do not. Fear is often admiration that lacks courage. When they lower their voices around your name, it is not condemnation. It is recognition. So let them speak. Let them create their narrative. You are not here to be easily understood. You are here to be undeniable. And if they need a villain for their story, make sure your presence is the reason they remember it. For a long time, you felt the weight of being misread. Not because you lacked clarity, but because others lacked perception. They underestimated your capacity, reduced your presence to simple labels, and mistook composure for emptiness. Yet none of those words captured the truth. They only revealed discomfort. You were never excessive. You were measured. You were never detached. You were discerning. What they failed to grasp was that your restraint carried awareness and your intensity carried direction. They saw surface. You carried depth. There were moments when separation became your only refuge, not chosen out of bitterness, but out of necessity. Distance was not loneliness. It was refinement. While others sought noise, you sought clarity. When betrayal appeared, it did not destroy you. It exposed you. It confirmed that your presence unsettled those who preferred convenience over growth. People rarely attempt to undermine what feels insignificant. They challenge what threatens their comfort. Every slight, every dismissal, every quiet rivalry was evidence that you were perceived as a force, not fragile, formidable. You sensed the tension even when no words were spoken, a shift in energy, a careful calculation in their tone. Your quiet observation unsettled them because they could not decipher it. But what they interpreted as coldness was control. What they labeled intensity was precision. Every challenge refined your awareness. Every obstacle strengthened your discipline. Nothing shattered you. It shaped you. Your silence became its own language, too complex for shallow minds to interpret. And while they struggled to define you, you were evolving beyond their understanding. There are always eyes on you, not obvious, not direct, but present. You notice the pauses when you pass by, the conversations that lower in volume, the way certain expressions tighten for a fraction of a second. They observe quietly, collecting fragments, trying to assemble a version of you that makes sense to them. Admiration rarely shows itself openly. It disguises itself as critique, subtle remarks, backhanded concern, disguised advice. Beneath it all is comparison. Beneath comparison is insecurity. There have been attempts to steer you, suggestions crafted to redirect your path, invitations designed to test your boundaries, conversations layered with hidden motives. Yet something in you always sensed the imbalance. You felt the shift beneath the words. You recognized the intention behind the smile. So the attempts dissolve before they could take hold. This is what unsettles them most. You cannot be easily influenced. When you enter a space, the atmosphere adjusts, posture changes, tone recalibrates. People become aware of themselves, not because you demand attention, but because your presence carries awareness, and awareness exposes what is unstable. They do not fully understand what they sense, so they project onto it. Uncertainty becomes suspicion. Discomfort becomes accusation. It is easier for them to frame you as antagonistic than to confront their own fragility. Unnamed rivals create stories to protect their pride. Silent doubters search for flaws to ease their comparison. The title they place on you is not an assessment of your nature. It is a shield for theirs. Calling you the villain allows them to remain comfortable in their limitations. It absolves them from growth. And without realizing it, their label becomes confirmation that you operate on a level they cannot reach. Something changed within you. Where there was once immediate response, there is now measured awareness. You no longer move at the speed of provocation. You pause. You assess. You let moments unfold before deciding where to place your energy. This is not withdrawal. It is control. You have stepped back from impulse and into clarity. You feel everything, but you choose what deserves expression. That choice is power. Your limits have become defined without announcement. No dramatic declarations. No visible walls. Just a steady refusal to tolerate what diminishes your focus. Access to you is no longer automatic. It is earned. Your composure is not fragility. It is structure. You understand that constant explanation weakens authority, so you no longer rush to justify yourself. You allow others to interpret as they wish, while you remain anchored in certainty. Restraint has become deliberate. Quiet has become calculated. With this shift, your perception has sharpened. You read sequences in behavior. You detect intention beneath language. You notice inconsistencies others overlook. Patterns reveal themselves quickly now. You gather information without revealing your conclusions. You prove nothing. You argue less. You observe more. Confidence no longer needs performance. It exists internally, steady and unmoved. What once required validation now requires nothing. You simply know, and that knowing changes everything. There is a density to you now, a steadiness that was not there before. Your movements are deliberate. Your breathing is even. Nothing about you feels rushed. That composure carries weight. When you step into a space, something subtle rearranges itself. Conversations adjust their tone. Expressions become more measured. It is not intimidation. It is awareness. People sense control, and control commands respect without demanding it. You do not need volume to be felt. Your restraint does the work for you. You stopped pursuing recognition, and that is when it began to follow. You no longer scan rooms for approval. You no longer measure your value by reaction. Yet attention gravitates toward you, not because you seek it, but because you do not. There is something magnetic about someone who does not beg to be seen. When you withdraw, the absence leaves an imprint. When you remain, the atmosphere shifts around you. Dynamics change. Certain voices soften. Others become cautious. The identity once placed on you has transformed into protection. It filters who approaches and who hesitates. It signals that you are not easily swayed, not easily provoked, not easily entered. It is gravity. It pulls without pushing. It holds without gripping. True strength does not announce itself. It exists, and that existence reshapes everything around it. You carry that gravity now, calm and contained, and it speaks long before you ever need to. At some point, the need for validation simply dissolved. You stop checking for applause. You stop measuring progress through the reactions of others. Approval no longer determines direction. There is a different authority guiding you now, one that does not fluctuate with opinion. It is steady. It is internal. Decisions rise from that center without hesitation. You no longer seek reassurance before taking action. You trust your own assessment. That shift changed everything. What once required confirmation now moves forward without permission. Your work happens quietly. Foundations are laid where no one is looking. Growth takes place out of sight, away from commentary and distraction. You reveal nothing before it is ready. There is no urgency to announce intention. There is no impulse to display potential. Focus has narrowed into precision. Distractions fall away. Discipline strengthens. You refine yourself daily, not for admiration, but for mastery. The process is personal. The results will speak when the time is right. Connections have become intentional. Not everyone is granted proximity. Not everyone earns insight into your plans. Access is restricted by design. You no longer waste energy correcting misunderstandings or reshaping perceptions. Narratives exist without your interference. If others require a dark character in their imagination, you allow it. You do not interrupt fiction. You do not defend against projections. You continue forward, unaffected. Becoming does not require explanation. It requires commitment, and you are committed fully without the need to be understood. You no longer respond from emotion. You evaluate. You trace sequences. You identify cycles in behavior and outcomes before they fully unfold. Where others react, you calculate. Where others rush, you remain composed. Speech has become minimal, intentional, precise. You gather information continuously, even in stillness. Observation now replaces impulse. You allow people to reveal themselves completely before making a single decisive move. This patience gives you leverage. It keeps you steps ahead without appearing forceful. Your progress is no longer connected to approval or disapproval. Neither praise nor criticism alters your direction. Both have become background noise. Momentum is generated internally, fueled by discipline and clarity rather than recognition. This detachment has made you difficult to anticipate. Those who once believed they understood your rhythm now find themselves uncertain. Your next step cannot be guessed. Your strategy cannot be mapped. You adjust without warning. You advance without announcement. Expectations fall behind because you are no longer operating within familiar limits. There is a different current guiding you now. Steady, controlled, self-governed. You move according to your own timing, your own design. External conditions no longer dictate your expansion. Growth originates from within, making it unstoppable by circumstance. Barriers that once delayed you now dissolve before they fully form. You are no longer accessible to doubt or distraction. Progression feels natural, inevitable. While others attempt to keep pace, you have already moved beyond their frame of reference. You are not chasing distance. You are creating it. Now you see it clearly. Nothing inside you turned dark. Nothing twisted or corrupted. What surfaced was always there, waiting beneath restraint and expectation. You did not transform into something sinister. You uncovered something formidable. Layers fell away. Illusions dissolved. What remains is raw capability, steady and unshaken. The narrative built around you was never about morality. It was about magnitude. When depth is mistaken for danger, it says more about the observer than the observed. The word villain was never an insult. It was a misunderstanding of strength that refused to be controlled. People often fear what they cannot influence. They grow uneasy around what cannot be diminished. That unease becomes a label. That label becomes a shield for their insecurity. But you understand now that their fear is acknowledgement. It is recognition without courage. They sense resilience they cannot bend. They sense clarity they cannot cloud. And because of that, access to you is no longer available to manipulation, hesitation, or narrow perception. So let the title remain. Let it echo if it must. You know what it truly represents. It represents autonomy. It represents command. It represents a presence that does not kneel to expectation. You are not stepping into darkness. You are standing fully in your own authority. And here is the truth they felt before you did. You are not becoming the villain. You are becoming undeniable. They already call you the villain because they sense the throne was never theirs.